Fiona Veitch Smith is an acclaimed author of detective novels and delightful children's books. She also happens to be the editor of my youth novel, Sharky Sun. She lives in Northumberland, just 20 minutes from stunning Alnwick Castle. That's Hogwarts to Harry Potter fans, and she agreed to meet with me there on my recent visit to the UK. I asked Fiona to bring along a couple of her favourite classic books, as well as a copy of her latest book, The Jazz Files.
When I think about classics that you've got to read, or don't have to read, but perhaps you'd like to read, I always go for the thinner ones. As you can see, absolutely skinny, no war and peace here. Don't stress, classics don't have to be scary wodges of books. So I've got a few here that are some of my absolute favourites, and I'd like to share them with you. The first one is called The Odyssey of Homer. Now, this is written by a guy called Homer. He was a Greek and he's from the 4th century before Christ. This book is about a journey that a guy called Odysseus goes on after the Trojan Wars. He goes on this amazing journey with all of his friends trying to get home to his wife Penelope. Now you'll probably know some of these stories. In here you'll have the story of the Cyclops in the cage, you'll have the island of the Lotus Eaters. All of these stories are being told and retold again in films that you watch at the cinema. For instance, Wall-E is based on the Odyssey of Homer. Think about that next time you watch Wall-E. Great book. Another journey story, which is based very much on Homer, is this one by Joseph Conrad called The Heart of Darkness. This was written in the early 20th century, around about 1910, and it's about a man who goes into the heart of the Belgian Congo. He goes on a journey into darkness and comes back out again, and when he's there he sees some really, really awful stuff. It is quite a disturbing book, but as you can see it's quite thin. It won't take you long to read. On a lighter note, after all of that Heart of Darkness stuff, The Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde. Again, an early 20th century book. Not actually a book, it's a play. Oscar Wilde was a novelist and a playwright, and this is one of his most famous pieces. I actually read this and laugh out loud still. I must have read it about 20 times. And last year I had the opportunity to see David Suchet playing Lady Bracknell at the Theatre Royal in The Importance of Being Earnest. I killed myself laughing. In fact, one of my favourite lines in the whole of English literature comes from this book. And if you don't mind, I'll read it to you. It's a character called Gwendolen. Now, Gwendolen is talking to Cecily, who tells her that she has just become engaged to this gentleman. Gwendolen's very surprised because she herself has just become engaged to the very same gentleman. And she says, she examines her diary through her lorgnette carefully. "It is certainly very curious," says Gwendolen, "for he asked me to be his wife yesterday afternoon at 5:30. If you would care to verify the incident, pray do so." She produces a diary of her own. "I never travel without my diary. One should always have something sensational to read on the train." And that is my favourite line in English literature. I tend to carry my diary around as well. Not quite as sensational as Gwendolen's, but I always write in it whenever I can. Finally, in my short review of the classics, we can't go anywhere without looking at Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. Not written here in Northumberland, down in the Yorkshire moors, the dark, dark Yorkshire moors. Wonderful book. You've probably seen at least one of the film adaptations, but the film tends to leave out huge portions of the book. So if you read the book, you'll get a whole different perspective on the story. And what I love about this book is that it examines, once again like Heart of Darkness, the darker part of our human nature. All of these stories are about strangers or orphans who come into a community and are either accepted or rejected. In Importance of Being Earnest, Earnest is a little orphan, and he actually eventually is accepted into the community and brings a bit of healing. In this one, Heathcliff is rejected by the community, and there's tragedy upon tragedy at the end of it. So get your tissues, read Wuthering Heights, you'll absolutely love it. So all of these books why do I even bother telling you about them? Well, apart from the fact that you'll enjoy reading them. The other thing is I'd like to tell you how it has influenced my own writing of my novel, The Jazz Files. Just like the Odyssey of Homer and The Heart of Darkness, this is about a journey. Young Poppy Denby comes from this part of the world, just down the road in Morpeth, goes on a journey down to London, and in London finds herself. So the stories of Homer, the stories of Heart of Darkness, about people finding themselves on journeys, are something that I've drawn on. Again, the outsider. Poppy is an outsider in this world, and will she be accepted or will she be rejected? The book is filled with people who are perhaps not what you would normally expect to find, people who don't really fit in. Rollo, the editor, her Aunt Dot, who's in a wheelchair. So many of these characters are outsiders and are struggling to find their place in the world. And that's the influence of these books on my own stories. It is nowhere near as depressing as Wuthering Heights or Heart of Darkness. It is as funny, I'd like to think, in places, as important as being Earnest, but it does have a sadness and a serious bit underneath it. On top of that, though, there's lots of champagne, there's lots of jazz, gorgeous dresses,